Today's podcast is going to be very interesting. Why? Because we have a special guest. Her name is Sushma Ramachandran ji. She's a seasoned economic affairs journalist and a columnist. Why I say that? Because she's known for her sharp analysis of Indian economy, public policy, and the changing global economic landscape. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking our time. It's a pleasure to have you here. But before we begin, we know that we are celebrating India's 80th independence. Definitely a very proud moment.
Yes.
I want to ask you a question when it comes to the future of Indian economy.
Yeah.
Do you really think the common man here today truly believes that we are independent in terms of social, economic, technology, and strategic terms?
One of the things is that, as you said, it's 80 years. And the people who are talking and thinking about these things, are largely in their 40s and 50s. And of course, now we have a very much younger demographic also. So they have taken independence per se for granted. Independence is a given. It's not something that we aspire towards. Even at least in my generation, we knew that our parents had fought for independence.
Yes. Just as you spoke of protests
Yes.
and all these demonstrations that we see every now and then, I sort of believe that isn't this growing more rapidly than the times back then? For every issue, there is Jantar Mantar. For every issue, there is no harm in, talking about issues in a manner where you are heard. Per se, like, I want to know that are you of this opinion that it's okay to have a polite or a calm protest than to the way it is now in Modi government scenario?
Well, certainly we would all love it if people who are unhappy about things would sit down in a calm manner and discuss things. But the people who have been carrying out the protests nowadays are very young. And honestly, it's very difficult for them to access the powers that be. I won't say that the powers that be or the government or political leaders are inaccessible, it's not that. But as a young person, when you're facing problems, very difficult for you.
Welcome to my podcast, Bharat Charcha. Today's podcast is going to be very interesting. Why? Because we have a special guest. Her name is Sushma Ramachandran ji. She's a seasoned economic affairs journalist and a columnist. Why I say that? Because she's known for her sharp analysis of Indian economy, public policy, and the changing global economic landscape. I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking our time. It's a pleasure to have you here. And now that we know that your experience is vast, we would definitely want to take an insight from you. But before we begin, we know that we are celebrating India's 80th independence, and it's definitely a very proud moment.
Yes.
I want to ask you a question when it comes to the future of Indian economy.
Yeah.
Do you really think the common man here today truly believes that we are independent in terms of social, economic, technology, and strategic terms?
Well, I don't know about the common man because one of the things is that, as you said, it's 80 years. And the people who are talking and thinking about these things, are largely in their 40s and 50s. And of course, now we have a very much younger demographic also. So they have taken independence per se for granted. Independence is a given. It's not something that we aspire towards. Even at least in my generation, we knew that our parents had fought for independence.
Yes.
And therefore, we realized that it was a hard-won achievement.
Right.
But people nowadays don't regard independence as something that they need to value. They have it, So I think that independence, they feel that whatever independence they have is a right, and they require more.
Right.
So, we know so many demonstrations and protests going on in recent times.
Yes.
And I think that arises from that fundamental fact that we now want to go beyond just the concept of independence. We need more. People do need more, and you can't blame them for that.
Right. Yeah, just as you spoke of protests
Yes.
and all these demonstrations that we see every now and then, I sort of believe that isn't this growing more rapidly than the times back then. For every issue, there is Jantar Mantar. For every issue, people, there is no harm in, talking about issues in a manner where you are heard. But are you per se, like, I want to know that, are you of this opinion that it's okay to have a polite or a calm protest than to the way it is now in Modi government scenario?
Well, certainly we would all love it if people who are unhappy about things were to sit down in a calm manner and discuss things. But the people who have been carrying out the protests nowadays are very young. And honestly, it's very difficult for them to access the powers that be. I won't say that the powers that be or the government or political leaders are inaccessible. It's not that. But as a young person, when you're facing problems, very difficult for you to find the right way to reach these people. And if you go by the conventional routes, you don't really get much of a response. And therefore, I will not blame them for taking this route. After all, again, talking about independence, this was the route that, Indian people took at the time of the colonial era to make sure that the British, listened to them. And here, of course, we have a democratically elected government. That's a wonderful thing. But even a democratically elected government sometimes overlooks certain areas of the economy, of the society. And therefore, you can't blame young people for raising their voice. In fact, what I found most interesting was that you have these very young people, who are in 13, 14 years old in rural areas. There are reports about how they're protesting about the poor quality of schools. And this is something that is justified. So this is not something that the central government has an immediate hold over. They don't select all these schools. This is a state subject. Within the state also, there are different levels of administration. But these are things that need to be fixed. And children and teenagers are highlighting. So I think
these genuine people coming in together to speak about issues?
I would say these are genuine people. In fact, yes. In fact, of course, if you see the protests at Jantar Mantar, you would have seen a little more. The people at Jantar Mantar were a little more educated. There were people probably who had sat for NEET. There were people. Some of the leaders were living abroad, studying abroad. So they are of a little higher strata of society. But if you see the protesters at Ranchi, these are young students who are from small towns, from rural areas, and they are protesting. Then if you see the reports which are coming, as I said, of these young boys and girls who are blocking roads and saying that we don't have water in our school, we don't have toilets in our school. These are people who are from the hinterland. So I think these are actually far more genuine and people who have far more genuine issues that we need to deal with. If in contrast, the Cockroach Janata Party leaders, if they have gone abroad, obviously their parents have the wherewithal to send them abroad. They have the finances. You cannot expect that from young people in Ranchi or in rural areas. So this is something that is coming from the grassroots level.
Right. So before we step into the future of the economy of India and discuss maybe energy security, ethanol, and many more subjects, I would first want to take an opinion about the vulnerabilities in this changing scenario, economic scenario. India is known as a country which is growing every day economically. But would you want to also talk about some vulnerabilities here that we are facing?
I mean, we do have many vulnerabilities, and I think I would say one major one is the tendency to protect our domestic industry. And this protectionist attitude was, of course, it's something that started from the Nehruvian era, and we had the license Raj regime. And that was all dismantled in 1991. We had the liberalization of the economy, and the economy opened up. So things changed. But even now, as we are in the modern technological era, we need to rid ourselves even more of this attitude of trying to protect certain segments of industry. And when you try to protect industry, you end up protecting large industry rather than the smaller industry.
Right.
And I think that there has been over the last probably 10 or 12 years a tendency towards creeping increase of tariffs.
Right.
And that, I mean, recently, of course, we know in the last 1 or 2 years, we've had these problems with the United States and the Donald Trump saying that India is a king of tariffs. But we may not be a king of tariffs, but certainly our tariffs had been growing higher. And we needed, and that was in an effort to try and protect industry. And in fact, there were many voices, including the well-known then, she was then economist with the IMF, Geeta Gopinath, who said that while this kind of tariff levy by the US is not good, it may prompt a rethink in the Indian government to bring down tariff levels to more reasonable levels. So I think this is one of our major vulnerabilities. I think over the last year or so, we have taken steps already. I think tariffs have been brought down in many areas. And now that we are entering into free trade agreements with Europe, the US, and
we would
UK,
want to discuss that.
we are, so all
Mother
that.
of all
but
these.
this is a vulnerability of India.
Yes. Thank you so much. And before we begin with E20, just give me a small perspective. Do you really think that it is one of India's success stories towards the growth of economy? Do you think it contributes in that manner?
E20?
E20, ethanol.
Yes, I would say it's a success story, certainly.
What have we gained from it?
Yeah, I think we have gained. The fact is that we are a huge oil importer, with the third largest oil importer in the world. We need to import 85% of our fuel requirements, fossil fuel requirements. And this has, in fact, I think there was a statement by a former ONGC chairman just the other day, where he said that we have already displaced about, I think, 31 million tons of oil due to the use of ethanol. We have saved 1.9 lakh crores in terms of foreign exchange.
Right.
So the entry of ethanol has brought some relief at a time when there is so much volatility in the oil markets. I mean, people, of course, are saying that, Brent crude is currently about $70. It's fine. We can manage it. That's not true. Over the last 2 months, the price of crude oil has shot up to over $100 per barrel during the Iran war.
Right.
And now it is slowly coming down, but it is going up and down. And the volatility over the last year has meant that our oil import bill has been, I think, in the region of about probably $130 billion over the last financial year. So this is something that cannot be overcome in a hurry. It can be overcome by turning to renewable energy sources, by turning to electrification of vehicles. But all these things take time. Ethanol is something we can do immediately.
Exactly.
It's an immediate solution.
Right.
Yeah.
So every success story has a story also.
Yeah.
And I want to know that who is actually paying the cost? Is it like the government or the farmers, or what exactly this should be according to you?
Because well, I think the farmers are certainly not paying the cost. The farmers are getting higher prices. The sugarcane farmers, of course, it is true, as some people are saying, that the money for ethanol is going to the sugar mills, because the sugarcane is processed at mills, and mills then provide ethanol to the industry, to the alcohol industry, and to the petroleum companies. But because the sugar mills are getting immediate payment for ethanol, they are able in turn to repay the farmers. There is something which, as we've talked about for many years, something known as cane arrears, that farmers who grow sugarcane do not get the payment for their product in time. And I think it's been a perennial story for the last 40 years that, what are the cane arrears so far.
Right.
So the entry of ethanol has enabled the sugar mills to become more financially stable and enable them to pay these cane arrears to farmers. So farmers are very happy with this policy.
Okay.
On the other hand, of course, there is the environmental and sustainability aspect, because sugarcane is something that requires a lot of water. Now, the solution to this which has already started, is that the oil companies have started using maize for ethanol, which uses much less water for production of ethanol. The other thing they are using is surplus and broken rice, because we have huge rice stocks in our inventory. Right. And it's not that rice is being grown specially for ethanol. We have stocks and there's surplus as always, and that's being used. And also you can use sorghum, that is jawar, and other millets also for ethanol. What is interesting is that in the next sugar, see, the sugar season begins in October. Yeah. And for the next sugar season, the government really wants to cut down the use of ethanol from sugar. So they're trying to move towards maize and other products.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. Like, if we have to reduce the energy security, so what is the alternate? And
yeah, so I mean, this is actually what I'm going to tell you is actually about the sugar industry. Sugar prices have shot up, and therefore the government is trying to, they've banned sugar exports, and they don't want this sugar cane to be diverted to ethanol, because they want to contain the prices of sugar. Yes. And therefore they're going to try, and from this sugar season, they're going to reduce the supply of sugar for ethanol. So that would help in that area.
Right. So now, ma'am, when we talk beyond the headlines, Indian economy, let's take the temperature in terms, like India is growing rapidly and creating enough good jobs. Do you sort of agree with that we are in a situation where we are capable of bringing jobs for our younger generation?
We are making jobs, but we are creating jobs, but we're not creating good jobs. We're not creating jobs that are good enough. We are creating a lot of jobs in the services sector. And those you can see. I mean, all these delivery apps we have so many transport cab companies, and you see that new types of employment have come on the scene. As I said, people who are delivering things, people who are driving taxis and cabs, people who are dealing with inventory and logistics of these companies. So there is a lot of new jobs which have come up. They're all in the services sector. Now, it's a good thing that the jobs have been created. There are, of course, also jobs in more specialized areas like IT and things like that. But these jobs which have come up are not what I would say good quality jobs in terms of the salary, in terms of the kind of work being done. And therefore, there is a great need to create jobs in the manufacturing sector, because here are the jobs which will pay you better and create also a manufacturing base for this country. So that's where we really have to focus, and that is a problem.
Yeah, because I feel the section, there is another section of the society which is a middle class section. I feel that they have always been unemployed, unhappy, and irrespective of how well India is doing in terms of creating jobs for the service industry, but there has to be something that needs to be done for them as well. And you mostly see them very unsatisfied.
Yeah, but I would say our middle class roughly has been estimated to be about 400 to 500 million people, and the the salary level for middle class is assessed at between 5 lakh to 30 lakhs annually. That's the middle class.
But the GDP growth somewhere looks very unsatisfying.
Yes, they say. But at the same time, I would say that this is the class which has, number one, it is, if at the lower end of the spectrum, these are the people who have pulled themselves out of poverty.
Right.
In fact, the whole the drive towards higher consumption of fast-moving consumer goods, of processed foods, of vehicles, personal vehicles, have all been driven by the middle class. And they have reached an increasing level of affluence, certainly. And what I see, I mean, I'm talking on an individual basis, not scientific at all, on an anecdotal basis, you can say that the people who I have been employing, for instance, as domestic helps, their children are now becoming CAs. They are becoming, what should I say? They have taken MBAs. There's one young woman who's become a journalist.
Yes.
And they are entering a level of the middle class, which is higher, but they're not going to be doing domestic work any longer. These people have educated their children, and these children are getting jobs and moving into a different strata of society. So I've seen this in front of my eyes. This is what I have personally seen. As it's not a scientific kind of a thing, but this is anecdotal.
Right. That's something which is happening on the ground now. And we need to discuss this more, because everybody, they all have their own stats. They have their own way to describe that, how middle class gets affected, whether the government thinks about them or no, whether there are enough jobs for them or not. But you're rightly saying that I do see domestic help and their children coming up really well in terms of...
And they have a drive to study, unlike probably your children and my children.
Right.
Your children and my children come from a fairly affluent, they don't have that drive, that urge. These children will study under a street lamp. They will study under very adverse circumstances, and they are doing well, and which is a great thing.
So do you realistically think that India has become the manufacturing alternative to China?
It has not become. It has not become. It can become, but it has not become.
Okay.
And my assessment is that one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one major reason that we are not able to compete with China is the immense red tape in our bureaucracy. And the bureaucratic red tape, there are apparently, I mean, I just looked it up, there are studies which show that to start a new project, you need as many as 3,000 approvals from the central government, from the state government, from the municipal government, from local authorities, from electricity companies, etc., etc. So this is the level of complexity for somebody wanting to set up a new project. Why will they come here? Why will a foreign investor come here? He can go to Vietnam, he can go to Indonesia, he can go to countries which don't have this kind of, complexity.
Why do we have this complexity?
Well, this is something that that has, is carryover from the License Raj regime. And the fact that I would have to say that this is the failure of this government. This government has taken, the Modi government has taken a lot of steps to declog the system. But they have not, unfortunately, done enough. They have, I must say, they have decriminalized. There were so many provisions, small issues over which criminal penalties were levied on industrialists or small industry owners. And they have decriminalized a lot. They have brought in these new labor codes, which have, in fact, I studied that about a year back. The number of labor laws we had was so complex, and they have, fortunately, they have simplified them. Now, the problem is that we have a bureaucracy which unfortunately clings on to its powers. And you would be surprised, I had met two secretaries to the government of India who told me way back when I was, in my reporting phase for the Hindu and Economic Times. They told me, they said, do you know that the reason this country is not progressing is because of what we call the iron frame of the bureaucracy. It needs to be dismantled. He said, because both of them told me, they said, we have been taught, because it's a colonial structure built up by the British. We are not taught to help develop things, to help people do things. We are taught to control people, to be in charge of law and order, prevent any disorder in society. We are not trained to help people.
Right.
So this whole system needs to be, and these are two secretaries. One was a industry secretary, former industry secretary. One was a former commerce secretary. Both of them told me. And I wouldn't like to take their names. One of them, of course, has passed away. I could take his name. Is Mr. P.P. Prabhu, who was commerce secretary for a long time under the Congress government. Very, very nice man who did his bit to declog the system, like this other gentleman also. The other person, secretary who I mentioned, by the way, he spoke at the World Economic Forum. We have the India Economic Summit every year, and they had a closed door meeting with foreign investors. I walked into that session, and they let me sit, and I said, "Don't worry, I won't write anything. I just want to listen." So he told the foreign investors there that my staff has told me that the complaint of the foreign investors was that whenever we call you, we are told you're at a meeting. This is so typical of Indian bureaucracy.
Yeah.
You're always told, Saab is at a meeting, Sir is at a meeting. So he says, according to my officials, my joint secretaries, additional secretaries, that when you call them, you will not get a message that they are in a meeting. Then he says, now they have told me that. I don't really believe that this is going to happen, but I'm telling you what they've told me.
No, we would love to know.
I'm telling you what they've told me. They say they'll take your calls.
Course,
but I don't really believe my officials.
Right.
So this gentleman later told me. He says Indian bureaucrats are more interested. They have of the ego trip that they have. That they can tell a big CEO or multinational that we're not available, or we have only 10 minutes for you. So this is the problem. This is a big problem. I'm not saying all bureaucrats are bad. A lot of bureaucrats have done a lot of good work for the country, and they deserve to be commended. We have Mr. Sridharan, who set up the metro, and many others like him who have done wonderful work. But by and large, this is a big problem.
So sadly, when set of people, they have that kind of mentality. My question is that how do we think differently to create jobs for those millions of people?
Yes. Well, I think this is an initiative that I think the government is now trying to listen to what people are telling them about these things. And as I said, they've started the process of telling each state that you should have single window clearance, and many states have done that. They have started the process, as I said, of decriminalizing the law. So there is some areas also, for instance, in taxation nowadays, though, a lot of people still talk about tax terrorism, which is there, but you do have the experience that you can file your tax returns online. You get as an ordinary middle class person, you'll get your refunds online. It's far smoother and so much more easy. That's a lot of it this government has done. Yes. So a lot of it has been done, and we can only hope that the situation with demonstrations and protests that happen, I think these are things that push the government to implement policies.
That's true. Now that we've spoken about, and of course we'll talk about it again, the Indian economic scenario, but I would want you to shed some light on the global scenario as well, economic scenario. Let's talk a little bit about NATO and Russia's relationship with it, which is getting a little complicated. And I'm sure Russia would not want to offend those 32 members who are already there.
Yes.
So US says that now Russia wants to make space in there. So what's your take on it? What is this change in scenario now between NATO and Russia, and the US having its own perspective on, why historically this has become such a complicated scenario for Russia?
Well, I think the problem has been that, you see, we have to remember that the Ukraine war really started, although the West keeps blaming Russia, the Ukraine war really started because NATO did not keep to its side of a bargain which had been made many decades ago.
Yes.
The fact that NATO would not extend its jurisdiction beyond a certain level, and then they kept extending the borders of NATO, and ultimately Ukraine, which is, it was part of the Soviet Union. It is very close to Soviet Union. It is economically, it is tied in many ways. The energy supplies from Ukraine and energy supplies go through Ukraine. So such a country which is integral to Russian economic and strategic well-being,
yes,
decided that it will join NATO. So this was a backsliding, and when Ukraine said that they will join, at that time the U.S. President Joe Biden was egging them on, and the West always looks at themselves and say, we're the good guys and Russia is the bad guy. That's not always the case.
No.
That's not always the case. And when Russia did invade Ukraine, there was a lot of angst. Now I think there's a recognition. That it's a great thing that Ukraine was able to withstand the onslaught from Russia. Well, fine, good for them, for the Ukrainian people. But the fact is that the whole scenario was Ukraine's status was manipulated, I would say, by the Europeans and the Americans, by instigating them. Don't worry, we'll help you if Russia, supports you. But now, both NATO as well as the US individually realized that the financial requirement of supporting the Ukraine is getting out of hand. And under Trump now, the US is not inclined to be that supportive. So therefore, I think there is now a recognition that we have to accept the reality that Russia is going to be where it is, and we have to deal with Russia and not demonize it into a kind of a villain. And I think Trump, for all his failings, that is one thing that he has done. He has treated Russia as an equal, and he has given, in fact, he's given Putin much more respect than the American people wanted him to, by having a summit with him and things like that. So there is now, I think there's a change in stance, because Europe is now seeing that the US is not likely to help them in this endeavor. US also, we talk about the financial thing, the US has also said that we're not going to be the only people providing finances for NATO. You will all have to do it. And of course, as you are aware, all these countries have now stepped up their defense, expenditure.
Right.
So this is, I think this is a reality has dawned on Europe.
Right. But US has that is US favorite dialogue. He likes to, US will first come close to a country, then sort of feels that, okay, it's getting closer to, Russia has always been all-weather friend.
Yes.
So why there is a problem with US that we should not buy crude oil from Russia? Why this has always been a problem?
Well, this of course is the fact that, you see, publicly they're still on the side of Ukraine, and publicly they still describe Russia as the enemy in this war over there. And the fact is that Russia, the US is still investing a lot of money in the defense of Ukraine. I mean, Trump may have grumbled about making those payments, but he is going ahead and providing arms.
He's not even happy with Netanyahu.
He's not even happy with Netanyahu. He's not happy with anybody. He's illogical, but let's not talk about that. But as far as Russian oil is concerned, it is extremely hypocritical attitude, not just by the US, but of Europe also. Europe also has been complaining very loudly that, India is buying Russian crude. In fact, under the earlier administration, Biden administration, there was not that much complaint by the US. In fact, it was the Biden administration which suggested to India that you should buy Russian crude. Otherwise, if you don't buy Russian crude, prices of global prices will shoot up. And therefore, that will make the oil markets unstable. And now they are, of course, pandering to the general, perception in the US of Russia being a villain. And that, it's a perception. And to show that they are protecting the American national rights. India, on the other hand, has no option just now. Last year, we had an option to buy from other places. Right now, India has no option because West Asian crude supplies have come down due to the war. So therefore, I think it's going to be a difficult situation.
Right. And now when we come to India, EU, mother of all deals,
Yes,
we all know that,
yes,
the relationship, how it is going.
Yeah.
Do you think that 1.4 billion Indians, they get an opportunity through this agreement that we have signed, and it is a good opportunity for Indians as a country, as a whole? Does it cater to our dreams?
I think it's a very good opportunity, and I talked.
Why does it make it so significant?
I think the fact is that in the past, Europe, of course, engaged with India. We have many European companies in India, functioning in India for many years.
Yes.
But the focus of Europe was on China. They looked at China as this big market where they could invest and where they could utilize and manipulate. They saw China as a more alluring investment and trading arena. Now they are worried with China having, flexed its muscles, as it were, to show that we can probably do better than you. They have flooded Europe with their electric vehicles, which are cheaper than European electric vehicles. Europe has been forced to push up tariffs. So they are nervous about China from the strategic angle and from the economic angle. At the same time, they find that their traditional ally, both economic and strategic, the US, is no longer as amenable as it used to be, that is, under Donald Trump. So they see India as this new market, a potential new ally, because you must remember that last year, the entire membership of all the members of the European Commission came in a delegation to India. I mean, that's not a small thing. They all came last year. And subsequently, of course, we had the European delegation coming as chief guests at Republic Day. So they are making a big push. It is not just the free trade agreement. We are entering into a defense and security partnership also with European Union. So it's with Europe per se. So it's a much larger thing that is happening.
Yes.
As far as Europe and India, EU and India are concerned, in the past, you can see the differences between the two sides. It has taken 18 years for this FTA to be signed. And the reason is rigidity on both sides. I won't say it is just Europe. India also has been rigid, saying that we can't open up dairy, we can't open up agriculture, we can't reduce tariffs on wines, automobiles. Yes, so many things. So I think that there has been compromise on both sides. India also recognizes that with the American market now becoming difficult, we must look at Europe. So India, you see, it's not just that they're entering our market, we need to enter the European market and get better tariffs. So on both sides, there's a compulsion. And this is why the FTA has come about. And hopefully by next year, you see, they also have a huge bureaucracy like ours. They now have to ratify it, and then individual countries will ratify it. So it will come into force only next year. But I think it's a very major development.
Right. But do you think that fundamentally this changes India's position in the global economy?
Yes, certainly it does, because as I said, Europe did not give India the kind of importance that it should have earlier, and now they are enthused. Right. And they are giving India, and also you see even with individual countries, Germany, for instance, is now looking for skilled professionals from India, IT professionals. Earlier, why did people from India not go to Europe? Partly was the language problem. Young students or professionals would go to the US. Partly is the language problem. Partly because it was very unwelcoming environment. They didn't want people.
Yes.
Now they want people.
Now they want. Yes. Even the universities are calling them out.
Yes. Yes.
That's true. So now we'll talk a little bit about China. This is something which is very interesting coming up, knowing the fact that I'll not say exactly that India and China are rivals, but despite that fact, why do you think that India still needs China somewhere?
Well, India needs China Just as every country in the
Every
world
country
right
needs,
now
yeah.
needs
Yeah.
China, because it is an economic powerhouse.
Right.
It is a huge manufacturing center, hub for the world. And so to that extent, we need China. But we also need to maintain stable relations with China, because unlike many other countries, including the US, which has a trade war with them, we have a border with China. And
Yes.
China is physically our neighbor. So it's very difficult to change geographical realities. So that's a geographical reality. And therefore, we do need to maintain our relations despite the problems of the border, which I think are something that's just going to go on in a very simmering kind of a way for a while.
Do you think?
I don't think that it's going to be resolved in a hurry. That will continue. And in the meantime, we can continue having our economic engagement. I think one very good thing is that the Indian government has decided now that they will allow Chinese investment. They had, ever since 2020, the Galwan clash, they had put curbs on it. They had not stopped it, but there were curbs on Chinese investment. We had to be scrutinized.
Yeah.
So now they're opening up, and we're now getting more investments from China. We need investment, so it's fine.
Right. Again, coming back to the oil theory,
Yeah.
Russia oil. So how much of the Indian trade tension with Washington is actually on the surface in the real sense, and actual tariffs, about how much is that Indian strategic relationship with Russia is so much that US feels threatened?
Well, the US does feel threatened, but I think till Donald Trump came on the scene, I think the US did recognize that for India, this is a long-standing relationship. I think
we've always been very stable with Russia.
We've always not just stable. It's a very good relationship, and I used to come on a program, a BBC program called Business Matters.
Yes,
they've wound it up recently, and from the time of the Ukraine war started, I would have these questions from the British anchors saying that why is India neutral in the UN in all the resolutions against Russia?
We've always been like that.
Yeah. So no, I told them, I said, you don't understand. You think that this policy or relationship with Russia is something to do with the Modi government. It has nothing to do with Modi government. It is any government, whether it was Manmohan Singh as Prime Minister or Rahul Gandhi had come as Prime Minister, any Indian government, if they had been there, will always support Russia, because I said that our long-standing relationship does not of now, it goes back decades. And I said people have not forgotten that in 1971, when Indira Gandhi needed assistance in the Bangladesh war, it was Russia who stood with us, and it was the US which sent the 7th Fleet to threaten us. I said people have not forgotten. And I said, even now, if you walk on the street and you ask a common man whether Russia is a better friend of India than US, they will say Russia. I said, this is the level of depth of the relationship with Russia. So this kind of relationship, as I coming back to the Biden administration, they admit, and I think US administrations successively have recognized that it's very difficult for them to break these kind of ties. Now, with the Donald Trump having come in, he is trying to, I would say, bully us and say, well, you have to choose a side. You have to it's either us or them. So strategically, there has been there was a reduction in purchase of Russian oil, and it must be accepted that it is not just that India has done this at the time of the Modi government. At the time of the Manmohan Singh government, also, when we were asked
I'm
to
glad
stop,
you clarified that.
Yes, we were asked to stop buying oil from Iran. We stopped buying oil from Iran. So it's not just that India has done this, the Modi government has done that, Manmohan Singh government doesn't. Every country works according to their strategic requirements, whatever is in their self-interest. It was in our self-interest at the time to to keep better relations with US and stop buying oil from Iran. Even now, it is in our self-interest to have good relations with the US and reduce our buying of Russian oil. But in the last few months, again, we have had to buy more Russian crude. It now accounts for 30% of our supplies, for the simple reason that because of the Iran war, West Asian crude supplies have been disrupted.
Right.
So this is now a problem.
Right. But we hear that, India and United States, they have a very strategic relationship.
Yes.
But the loop is that, what about these tariffs?
Yeah.
Why do we keep, they keep coming in play?
Yes.
So what is the strategy from US? On one side, they want to be friends with us.
Yes.
On the other side, when we hear by the end of the day, there are so many tariffs coming up.
Yes. I mean, I have to agree with you on that. I mean, the latest is the 100% tariffs on people who buy oil from Russia. But apparently there is some window of 60 days before this tariff is actually comes into place. The president has to decide about it. And the fact is that the US has to decide that if they want a strategic relationship with India, they cannot keep pushing us like this, because we also have to keep our national self-interest in mind. We definitely need to buy crude from all over the world. We have even increased our crude supplies from the US. It's fine. Who's ever selling it, we'll buy it.
Absolutely.
But Russian crude is available. And now it becomes, by the way, even more important to buy Russian crude, because supplies, apart from the Strait of Hormuz, which people have talked about, is blocked. Now this strait called Bab el-Mandeb has been targeted by the Houthis. So supplies from Saudi Arabia, which is Saudi Arabia is also a major supplier, are not able to come through that route.
Right.
But Russian vessels can come because they don't attack them. So India, as I said, have to see to its self-interest. The perception is that the problems of this trying to push India is that one set of aides of Donald Trump are anti-India, but there are others who are, more amenable to us. For instance, after this bill was passed, the Vice President J.D. Vance called up the Prime Minister, obviously to mollify him. There was the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who came down specially to talk to the authorities over here to assure them that we are very much on board with the security relationship. The US ambassador is very close to, Sergio Gore is very close to Trump. He's also been trying to mend ties. So I think just now it's a work in progress. I really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And how would you place, what exactly would you say that India is placed before US or in eyes of US when it comes to resolving issues and coming back on a strategy where they want to be friends, but US always makes sure that India has to listen to us, then we can go ahead. And I know that US has been globally, US has been like a bully with every country.
Yes, I think that's a policy.
But do you think really stop somewhere, or we will always be threatened like that by them?
I think that is I think we have to accept that is Trump's way of dealing with foreign countries.
But then how do we deal with them?
And I think we have dealt with it so far very well, because the Prime Minister has not made any critical comments against Trump, despite all the provocation, which is very very mature and sensible of him. Because, you had so many people saying, oh, they're saying so many things about us, the Prime Minister, how can he take it? I think that it's a very mature attitude. And I think in this context, I must mention that there was a lot of talk that Pakistan has got an edge because they have entered into mediation for the Iran war. And I think that it was very sensible of India to have kept out of that mediation, because that's a very, very volatile situation. Pakistan right now is, very much in the good books of Trump for this reason, but tomorrow they could be very much out of the good books. So I think it was very sensible that India, I don't think that it should be seen as a competition between Pakistan and India. India is on a different plane. Our relationship is we are a much larger country, we're economy, strategically. So I don't think we need to look at things like this.
Right. We don't really put our minds into something where we know that this would head for a trouble.
Yeah,
Might as
it
well
is.
Take a very neutral
It
route
is
to
the
keep
best,
it.
the best, and we have maintained our relationship with Iran also, because Iran is not seeing us as a hostile country.
Not at all, yeah.
So therefore, I think it was a very good policy.
Yeah. So another funny thing I would quote it as that US has been saying this, we have won, we have won, we have won. And I think there has been an AI that has recorded this for almost 106 times now. So which apparently appears very funny.
Yeah.
What is your take on that? Why
well, I think it's not the US saying, we have to be very clear, it's Donald Trump saying it. Yeah. And that's the kind of person he is.
What
and
is the
you
message
can only,
that he wants to put across? Like, we all see the news, we all know what is happening.
So I think it's something to do with his background as a businessman, where if you constantly say a particular thing, people will believe you, you know. And the other thing is that he has been able to have his way in his political party, in the Republican Party. That is, all those who are his critics, despite his very erratic behavior, despite the fact that he launched the Iran war and the general American public is so hostile to him, his popularity ratings are at a new low. But the Republican Party continues to support him. Plus, he has the famous MAGA base. So he this kind of erratic behavior of constantly saying, "I have won, I have won." This is the kind of approach which has won him a lot of support from his MAGA base. That very,
and I think people like to bet on his behavior.
Yes.
That's the reason he's still there.
And I think for us sitting back here, I think it's a bit of fun. That's it.
That's true. So we have spent decades observing Indian economy. You have spent decades over, observing Indian economy, public policy. Your journey has been massive, right? We would like to know a little bit about your journey. How it started, were you like really passionate about it?
You're talking about my career, how I started?
Observations also.
Well, when I started, I joined Economic Times way back in 1970. I mean, I joined them in 74. I joined Times of India in 73. So 74, we launched the Delhi edition of the Economic Times. And you wouldn't believe it that those days when I'd go to meet people, people would ask me, bureaucrats, they would say, is it a daily or is it a magazine? What is Economic Times? Nobody had heard of Economic Times.
Really?
Yeah. So that was the, initial days. And but it was very much a licensed Raj economy regime. And most of the news was government news on the front pages. And we had this one page which was for corporate news. And if you wrote too much on corporate news, people would look at you suspiciously. Why you must be getting money from somebody. And of course, you had these very huge companies. You had the Tatas, the Birlas, the Goenkas, but they were the big people who had their entrenched interests, and they had their there was a lot of crony capitalism because the policies would suit them. Anyway, as I said, for me, we were doing largely government news. I used to go to the ministries. Those were the era when you had Udyog Bhavan, where the industry ministry was a very, very powerful place. Narayan Dutt Tiwari was the industry minister, and the chief chairman and chief executives of companies would roam in those corridors waiting for an audience with some bureaucrat or the other.
Yeah.
It was a very powerful place. The finance ministry was also very powerful in South Block. So, North Block, rather. And so that was a completely different era. And the other thing, of course, was that I was, wherever I would go, press conferences, I would be the only woman. There were very few women in business journalism those days. Only in the around 89, 90, you suddenly had an influx of women coming into business journalism. And then, of course, the general papers, they had one commerce page that used to give all the business news. And half page was stocks and the other half page was small items. So it was a very unimportant part of the paper, the economy. But suddenly, one of the things that sparked interest in the stock market was when Reliance Industries launched its IPO, public issue. And Reliance Industries, Dhirubhai Ambani decided, instead of raising money from banks like everybody else did, he decided to go to the public. I mean, that was very innovative at that time. And so you had all these people who had very little money, because with a small amount of money, you could buy 10 shares or 20 shares or something like that. So a lot of people bought a lot of these shares. And that is how the first investment of Reliance Industries started. At the same time that this happened, we're talking about mid-80s, same time you had the government asked foreign companies to dilute their shareholding under the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. So a lot of these blue chip companies diluted their shareholding again through public issues. So people started buying these shares in the market. So this happened kind of simultaneously. And so you had people, suddenly there was an interest in the stock market. And suddenly you had these publications coming out. They were called Money and
so
Stocks.
Was done parallelly. This was the inception.
Yeah. So this was the mid-80s, late 80s, I'm talking about, late 80s. And they were, you had these publications suddenly came out, which all about stocks, money. And they used to be sold on the, pavements of Connaught Place and things like that. Because suddenly, and even an ordinary man, a small shopkeeper was buying shares, So this was something completely new. And when Dhirubhai Ambani held his first AGM, it was in a stadium because there were so many shareholders. And then because he gave rights issues, he gave bonus issues, people made a lot of money on his shares, and the value of shares, Reliance shares, went up, as well as these blue chip shares. And I know stories of people who, got their children married by selling off these shares. I have a friend who went abroad. She had these shares. She came back and she sold them and she financed her children's education. So this Reliance Industries was very largely responsible for launching the equity culture in our country. This, of course, expanded in 1991 with the liberalization of the economy. Then companies were unshackled. You had new companies coming in like Infosys and HCL. And so then suddenly everything kind of exploded. But it began in the late 80s with Reliance and this.
Thank you for letting us know that. And what gives you that greatest optimism being as a journalist, because you're a very seasoned journalist? So if you have to give an advice to the young generation today, what would be that advice? Or people who look up to being in that field where they could, read about global market, Indian economy, what is that one advice you would want to give to them? Well, it has changed now. The scenario has completely changed.
Yeah, I would tell young people to stay in India. I think that's one of the biggest advice I can give.
Because I'm hearing this very often now.
Yes, please stay in India. And because I have been very concerned over the fact that you have people rushing to go abroad, whether it's for work or for education. Now you have two different states, and I'm linked to both of them. One is Punjab and one is Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. Because my husband is South Indian and I am Punjabi. So in Punjab, you have so many people migrating to the US seeking jobs. You have in Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, you have people again migrating for education as well as high-tech jobs. And for both these people in these areas, let's say, their dream life is to be in America. And I want to tell them, your dream life can be here. You live here and you can live a wonderful life in this country, and you can earn a great deal of money, probably the same dollars that you're earning there. It'll go much longer, a long way over here. You can live a much better life, quality of life, and build the country. We have a country which needs to be built. We need people with all kinds of skills, whether it's plumbers and electricians to carpenters to high-tech people, to AI models. We need everything.
Yeah.
And my advice to you is to stay in a growing economy that will give you opportunities.
Right. You absolutely sound like one of the entrepreneurs that I saw on the news just a few days back.
Oh, really?
And yeah, he started as a very small entrepreneur in US and has become very big and large. But now he says that I want to come back to India and suggest every Indian that this is the land of opportunity.
Yes, this is the land of opportunity.
Don't move out of it.
Yeah.
If you can, take your education from here, sustain,
Yes.
and wait for the right time. So this is the place that can take you to another level.
Yes.
Back then, yes, when people would say that India is a land of snake charmers or cow dung, was a different scenario. But now, as India we see is growing every day, and you think it's going to be one of the, this will be a large economy, the largest economy
It will
ever.
be. It will be a large
When
economy.
do you think it would be the right time?
Well, I think Viksit Bharat is 2047, but I would say by 2035, I would say, I think, things are, because you see the pace of change. You can see the pace of change. But definitely a lot needs to be done to unshackle the economy. And like I said, the bureaucracy is top of the list. You need to unshackle the country from all the bureaucratic controls.
Yeah, I think they need to understand the money, job pattern.
Red tape just needs to go.
Yes.
But otherwise, I think, sky's the limit.
Thank you so much for giving us the most insightful information about the global economy and Indian scenario. I think this episode should serve as a chapter for a lot of people who want to know what is the relationship between India, China, then of course Europe and India that we discussed. So thank you for taking your time and for being here on the podcast today.
Thank you for calling me, Avantika.
Thank you. I hope it went well and we could pull out whatever the recent scenario talks about.
I don't know. You tell.
Once they combine it together. But I think you've got very massive experience and probably you do a lot of reading also that you know about every day.
I have to do a lot of reading. I have to do that
so
every day.
There's so much information out there. So
I know it's a little difficult.
How do you make how do you segment it? That this is
in fact, that's why I cut down my assignments, because I said I'm not able to read enough. I'm just writing. I'm not able to read. So just reading the newspaper itself is so much, for me. Though I get 4 newspapers, I don't read all of them. I don't read everything in them. I have to select what I want to read,
In fact, I wanted to know about the journalism part also, that today's journalism doesn't really feel very authentic. The way it used to be back then during your time.
Yes.
It was something where a lot of investments were not always talked about. The channels would give real information which was required. But now I think it's all about stats, it's all about growth, it's all about money, it's all about where you begin from and how big you can take the channel. Do you also feel that?
Well, I've never really worked in TV. I've always been in print. I've been in, and print is a much slower medium.
So print is not a victim of all of this?
It is a victim. It is a victim because now, for instance, my friends, young friends who are working in Economic Times and places like that, it's a lot of burden on them because they not only have to write an article for the print edition, they have to do a small, kind of a, not a podcast, whatever it is,
Interviews?
No, just the whole story in, recorded, a kind of video recording of the story. They have to put that up. Then they have to put it on social media, put stuff on social media. I mean, it's a lot of work, And I said, I don't think I could do that. That's too much, And I think it's just too much burden on the newspapers.
But this is the need of the hour. That's what.
Yeah, but people have to, you then hire more people. Why are you cutting back on people? Hire more people to do this.
You think AI could ever replace journalism?
As of now, it can't, because I did some prompts and I tried to get it to write article. It was so bland, I couldn't do anything with it. I said, this doesn't even help me as a basis for an article. Because what they do is they just take stuff from various places and they put it together. So somebody was telling me you have to give a different kind of prompt. Tell them to write in the style of an economic expert and things like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not able to do that.
So that human interaction is altogether a very different kind of experience that the channels would also want to have. Right? Not only people like us would want to see the channels.
I don't think AI can replace journalism. It can help journalism, definitely.
Yeah.
It can be a big help, For instance,
in gathering information.
Not gathering, I think, in collating the information, like for instance, if they have to do the write the story, give the story video, you can have an AI robot do it, because the same story the person can read out or online, or put it on social media. The way to put it on social media, AI can do that for you. So it can help. And make the work easier.
Right. I think, but when it comes to exhaustive research, so if I take my example of doing a podcast, say I do it today with you, I know that I can ask questions, but the point is this: I am the one who has to first frame those questions and understand that.
And during the podcast, you change your mind. Okay, now I want to ask something else.
Yeah, it has to be.
So that's AI. AI can't do that,
no?
AI will go on the path you've told it to.
So even if you see there's a format that I forwarded. But there are certain questions which I just come up with.
Just come up with, because it is part of it's just organic. It just, since I say something, you follow it up with that.
And then maybe I want to catch hold of the last line and
exactly. Right. That AI can't do that.
No. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know. Oh, yeah.